Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to another episode of the Church of Tim Curry, the show where we review films starring His Holiness, Tim Curry. Joining me is my co-host, Viva Becker.
Hi. Today we will be reviewing not films starring Tim Curry.
Yes, we're going to be doing crime shows starring Tim Curry. We're going to be talking about episodes of Psych and Criminal Minds that guest star Tim Curry. We're going to start off with Psych. Psych is a detective comedy series about a crime-solving duo called Sean and Gus. Their gimmick? Sean claims to be psychic, when really he's just a skilled detective. In this episode, which is titled American Duos, Sean and Gus must work out who is trying to kill the famous TV judge Nigel St. Nigel, played by Tim Curry. In order to stay close to him, they decide to enter as contestants on Nigel's TV show. So a little background, I've never seen any episodes of Psych before. This was my first ever episode. So what's your history of this show, Viva?
I have seen every episode of Psych. I have not seen the movie, but I have a lot of nostalgia attached to the show because my family used to watch it together. And I have a lot of nostalgia attached specifically to this episode. Because when I was younger, I was out of the United States traveling around a lot, and I had a couple episodes of shows that were on my iPod, and I would watch them pretty much every day just to hear people speaking English, and this was one of them. So I've seen this episode a lot.
So my first impression of the show is that I actually had quite a lot of fun, even though I'm starting, I think it's season 2?
Yeah, season 2, episode 1.
Yeah, even though I've skipped a whole season, I still got an idea of what the show was like and what the dynamic was supposed to be between Gus and Sean, and I found those two to be quite charming and entertaining, as childish as they were. There's just something that I really liked, and I do get the idea that they're pretending that Sean is a psychic when really he's just a very good detective, and I think that's an interesting premise for a show, and yeah, it's quite for a comedy show, that is. So yeah, I've really liked that, and I like that the supporting characters get to shine too. They don't always play straight off the psychic detectives; they get to be silly themselves. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like those kinds of things, and I had a lot of fun, and I would watch more episodes, to be honest.
You should watch more episodes.
I do after seeing it. I did have quite a lot of fun, because it's very silly, and I like my silly. And so yeah, Tim Curry plays this Simon Cowell-esque kind of character, and he gets to honestly better
than Simon.
Oh yeah, Robin.
He's parodying the very angry British judge guy, but he does it better than the real ones, in my opinion.
He really sells it, because he gets to be a bitch the whole episode, and he has all these amazing quotable lines. And even though he's like the biggest arsehole in the world, you love him. And I think that's because Tim Curry is pulling it off.
Yes. The lines are infinitely quotable.
Yes.
I spent my childhood pretty much quoting every single one of Tim Curry's lines in this movie.
Episode.
Oh, goddamn. Episode, yes. I am paying attention right now.
Stop! I do not have physical contact with people with arm hair.
That case
Was a gift from Les McEwen of the Bay City Rollers. It's a very expensive
Wait.
Give it back.
No.
Give it back.
No.
What is it with you and throwing things?
That's it, take off the robe. Wearing that robe is a privilege, and you, pal, have just lost it.
I steadfastly refuse. This is the plushest, most opulent robe I've ever had the pleasure of wearing.
Well, there's one thing we can agree on. Now give it up.
No. I feel like an angel baby swaddled in a cocoon of cloud candy.
This episode was kind of a big part of my childhood. My sister and I would would go around slapping things out of each other's hands, and then one of us would have to be like, give it back.
He was a riot. So I really enjoyed his performance. He often steals scenes, just being there, and that's quite a task when you're the guest.
Yeah, and it's quite a task with the other side characters that they had too, like the other judges and stuff. They had pretty strong personalities as well.
Yeah.
You remember all of them.
Honestly, guys, bad news. I mean, this is gonna hurt. Although I do love your style because you both chose to wear purple. But I think we need to be forthright in saying
That we cannot even begin to understand how brilliant that was. You can't even speak.
Yes, I can! But you don't let me. I was the first to sign on. This was supposed to be my show, my shot, my comeback. You turned me into a simp. I freaking hate you! People don't even know who I am. I get fan letters addressed to Geraldo, Ricky, Martin, and that guy from El Pollo Loco commercial. You ruined everything!
I only have a couple things that could have made the episode a little bit better.
Right.
The first one was, I really think that they should have shown a closer view of Tim Curry's sandwich. There's a part where there's a mini mystery surrounding Tim Curry's sandwich, his tuna niçoise salad sandwich. I don't think we get a close enough view of the sandwich that we could actually have figured it out on our own.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with some of these like crime shows where they have this super observant guy is they don't actually show you enough stuff that you could have figured it out on your own.
Yeah.
So it makes it less impressive when they figure it out, because you're like, oh, well, they just
Pulled out of their ass.
they pulled it out of their ass pretty much. If they had just shown just a little closer view, I think that would have been better. And then it's a comedy show, so there's a couple things that kind of like realism kind of gets sacrificed a little bit for the comedy. So there's a part where they're dancing and the music magically goes on again, even though the tape player doesn't get turned on again. When they are driving Tim Curry to Sean's dad's house, they leave the car, but all the windows are down, which is very dangerous. You should not do that, probably. And they find this crystal thing because light is going through it somehow, but it's buried at the bottom of a toilet bowl, so I don't know how that works
exactly. Yeah, that was
exactly.
weird.
That was a little bit stretching it a little bit too far for me. I was like, I don't think that's how it worked.
I think with that bit, they were really intensely focused on this will look pretty. They didn't think this will look logical.
Yeah. But a lot of it is more what's gonna be a funny bit and not necessarily what would actually happen, you know?
Exactly, yeah. They're all setups for comedic gags. And I do quite like the idea of the murder mystery in this episode, and I've never really thought... I'm quite surprised that no one's done this before, the idea of a contestant or judge trying to kill a famously hated judge. And the fact that he...
And you know, nobody actually gets murdered in this, by the way. Nobody actually dies. So.
Yay. But like, I like that because every single person in the entire nation hates this guy, anyone and everyone is a suspect. So like that adds a lot to the mystery, because then you're like, could be him, could be him, could be her, could be anyone.
I mean, how could you hate him? I couldn't hate him. You know, if I was watching the show, I would love that guy. He'd be my favorite guy.
He just cuts the bullshit. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun with this episode. Really enjoyed it, and I do want to go back. I'm going to go back to season 1 and go from there. This
was probably like, these people knew how to use Tim Curry.
Yes, absolutely. It
was a great use.
It really
Every line was perfect for him to deliver in his Tim Curry voice.
Yes. So do you have anything else to say about this episode?
No, it's great. It's appropriate for young kids. Show it to them, and it'll probably be you probably won't be able to get the lines out of your house for
Yeah.
a couple days.
I'm not. What is the rating for it? Do you know?
No, I don't know, actually. I don't know what the rating of the overall show is either.
That'd be interesting to find out, because it does feel like family-friendly crime, almost, because it's so tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being more than,
Maybe TV PG or PG-13.
yeah, PG or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, they do have references to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
A lot.
But Simpsons has that as well, and they managed to get away with like a PG, don't they? The other thing is that I rarely watch live-action TV shows, because I just struggle to get into so many of them, as they are often melodramatic and take themselves too seriously. So I like crime shows that have a sense of humor, and so when I started watching it and started to realize, oh, hang on, it's really silly and wacky, I'm gonna love this. That's my kind of crime show. But not to say I completely dislike the idea of a serious crime show. I'm open to it. It's just most of the ones I've seen have been pretty dull, and like I said, took themselves too seriously.
Well, I bet you loved Criminal Minds.
Okay, moving on to Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds is a dark crime drama show that centers on a team of FBI agents who try to uncover the psychological motives behind wanted criminals. In these 2 episodes, Our Darkest Hour and The Longest Night, the agents are trying to track down a serial murderer and rapist called Billy Flynn, played by Tim Curry. Things get complicated though when Flynn shoots one of the agents, Spicer, and kidnaps his daughter, Ellie. We later learn that Billy was abused by his mother and he ended up shooting her. Okay, so again, this is another show, my first time watching it ever. Did kind of get an idea of it, but less so compared to Psych. But to be fair, Psych had very simple things for you to understand and get to know. With this show, it was a bit more gritty and realistic, and I get the feeling that you have to watch quite a few episodes to get really acquainted with a lot of these FBI agents. But I got the idea of the main ones, the main characters. And I'll admit that I did find a lot of the conversations regarding the behaviours of criminals between all these characters to be quite engaging, and seeing them discussing what might be making Tim Curry's character tick, that kept me interested. So yeah, that's how I felt. That was my first impression.
Well, I've seen some of the show. I've probably seen about 40% of the episodes, but I didn't see them in order. They were just kind of on TV, so I don't know too much about the story, the overall story. And I was a little bit disappointed with the 2 episodes. I think they tried to make it feel realistic, but that just made all the stuff that was not realistic stand out even more,
Right.
and it made it worse.
Right.
I was really just very disappointed, you know? There's a part where the resolution to the episode is they put their communications coordinator, I think, over the emergency alert system, and she has this little talk with Tim Curry's character, and that is just, it ripped me right out of the story, because they would never do that. She says multiple times she's not a hostage negotiator. They're broadcasting this completely unprofessional talk that she's having to every radio in LA, yeah. And everybody's hearing this, and she's just, I couldn't believe it for 1 second.
Okay, Mr. Flynn, I want to talk to you about letting Ellie Spicer go. I mean, I want to ask you to. See, I'm not a hostage negotiator. I've never done anything like this at all, ever. But sometimes circumstances, it's...
And what she said was very unprofessional, too. And she had this page of notes that she writes down about how she's supposed to talk to this guy, and she doesn't follow them at all. In fact, she breaks all the rules on the page. It still works for some reason. And then when it works, she stops talking. And I don't know how she knew that she should stop talking then, because nobody had told her to stop talking, and they said just talk to him through the radio until he gives up the girl. She didn't know that he gave her up.
Yeah. She could have kept going, yeah.
Why did she stop? I don't know. That's completely unrealistic. Why? Also, come on, the FBI having somebody who's obviously not trained and they're broadcasting this unprofessionalism to the entirety of LA. I mean, that sounds like a PR nightmare right there.
Yeah, I think they were mainly trying to do this whole mother and child theme using her, but not thinking, okay, would they use her in a professional context? It feels like they had her talk to Billy just because she was a mother. And like, yeah, that's a decent qualification, but not when someone might be killed.
And they try to address it. She's like, I'm not a professional. And Agent Hotchner's like, you are today. And I'm like, okay. I'm sure that's how it works.
It did feel very like 80s Hollywood cheese kind of moment with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Another thing, there's like this amazing reveal that that one of the agents working on the case is actually like has a past history that he's blocked out with the serial killer Tim Curry, and then right after he figures it out, they're like, Tim Curry knew about this because the press has been talking about your history all this time. And I'm like, how does this guy not know this if the press has been talking about it this whole time? Even if he blocked it out, how did he not find out later? Like, how is this the first time he's hearing about this? I don't know.
Yeah, that was
impossible. Yeah. And they talk about Tim Curry goes around, he leaves all of his DNA evidence all over the place. He has people, he leaves one witness alive so they see him every single time. And he's been doing this for, 30 years, and nobody's caught him. Nobody's even connected the dots. That's the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, it goes for this realistic kind of feel, but then if you actually think about their main plot points, it just doesn't make any sense.
I get you, yeah. What did you think of Tim Curry's actual performance?
Wasted.
Really?
Absolutely wasted. I found myself, because what they did was they saddled Tim Curry with this little girl, this child actress, and I mean, yes, she's a child actress, but every expression, she was probably expressionless through 60% of her shots. And these are shots where she's being threatened, where she's running for her life, where she sees her dad get shot right in front of her, and expressionless. And when she does have an expression, it's inappropriate, like at the end when the agent comes out of the house. She's smiling. I'm like, why are you smiling? Why are you smiling there? And she's just, she does everything he tells her to, so she's an accomplice. She doesn't look scared, so that we're not given a good reason as to why she's doing this. And they put her in the fakest, most disgusting wig I've ever seen. They're like, oh, he cut her hair. And I'm like, no, he put a shitty wig on her. And because that girl was there, I felt myself disappointed every time they went back to Tim Curry. I was like, oh man, we have to watch them again. Oh, okay. Right. And I couldn't see Tim Curry because that girl was there, and she was taking up just as much screen time as him, and it was dragging it down. The only part where I really got to see Tim Curry's acting really shine through, and I was really impressed, was his final monologue before he dies at the end. And that was really amazing.
That was stunning.
Do you believe in heaven?
This is your last chance.
Do you think I might see her there? Maybe get a second chance.
But before that, it was a slog to get through these 2 episodes, and I could feel the wind leaving my sails when they cut back to Tim Curry, and I was just so disappointed that they chose this actress for it. And I don't want to be too mean, but she was the main character driving she was like the object of the plot for the 2 episodes, and she didn't make expressions.
Yeah, for me, I felt like all the children were weirdly calm and collected. That there's 2 kids in these 2 episodes, and they're the kids of victims of Tim Curry, and after the murders, it's almost like, it's not like they found out that their parents have died, it's like they've been told, well, your parents are moving to another country. It didn't have the same kind of impact. They didn't seem really traumatized, and I know that people react differently to that kind of thing, but having them both act so nonchalantly really took me out of
that. No, that girl needed to act at least a little bit scared.
Yeah, she did.
Because she goes along. She pretty much helps Tim Curry murder a family, and we need to be given some reason as to why she's doing that, or else she just comes off as evil, and that's how she came off, as evil, pretty much.
I don't know, because I read it as she didn't really help, but I kind of read it as she felt intimidated by him because he had the gun and he had a knife, so he had an advantage in some way, but she didn't really help sell that because she really looked scared.
Well, if she was... Yeah, well, if she was intimidated, then she should look intimidated, and she shouldn't have this blank face look while she's delivering all of her sassy lines to Tim Curry when she's like, "Hi, I'm not your we're not partners. I'm not gonna help you. Why do you have to kill people?" Yeah.
It was weird. I mean, like, sometimes she looked like she was ready to join him, and then next she'd be looking at him like, "Why are you doing this?" It was really jarring. You could never really tell.
Honestly, the agent who finds out about his dark past, Spicer, handles it pretty well too.
Yeah.
They tell him about it, and he has this blank face look, and then he walks out of the room for a couple seconds, and he walks back in. He's like, "Okay, how are we gonna catch this guy?"
I know.
I'm like, wow, you took that really well.
And he goes through like some kind of like, I don't know, like that guy Derek, like, does some kind of therapy with him to help him remember what had happened when Tim Curry killed his parents.
They do that in a ton of episodes.
Yeah.
That's like a thing they do a lot.
Well, it felt really quick. It felt like, right, okay, what do you smell? What do you see? Right, got it. Right, let's go. It felt really fast that all this stuff that he'd repressed just suddenly came out because Derek was saying things like, "What do you smell, mate?"
Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I can't remember stuff that I smelled.
I can't.
26 years ago.
No. Because I was probably like 1.
I don't think it would be that easy.
No, it was weird. So, my thoughts on Tim Curry is that he can be very intense and very creepy. The problem is the direction. The camera is always trying to do that early 2000s, let's shake it around, let's make the editing really gritty and raw, and it's like, just hold the camera on him, let us feel his presence in the room. And there's just so much of that, like really fast, quick editing and really shaky cam, and it's like, no, we don't feel him until the camera calms the fuck down later on in the second episode, and the camera starts to focus on him. When he's...
And they still slap a big black bar of shadow over his face, too, over his eyes, when he's trying to give his monologue.
Yeah. I was okay with that, kind of, because it added a bit of sinister lighting to it, but it was, at the same time, it was a little distracting. But when he's listening to that radio broadcast, even though I'm not buying what she's saying, the look on Tim Curry's face is quite gripping and quite believable. You can see this broken child inside of this man's face, and I thought that bit, and the bit where he is having that almost showdown with Derek in the house, and there's those 2 people tied up, and Tim is just more than anything, thinking, how can I see my mum again after what happened? Maybe I can die. And like that part, just any time with the camera calm down and let Tim show his emotions, that was some of the best acting I've seen from him.
Yeah, and it was just him, and he didn't have Ellie with him.
Yeah, those little moments that just fixated on his face, and that part, you see him crying, and like, it's so intense, because you're not, there are parts in the episode where I forgot it was Tim Curry. It just vanished, and it helps that he's got this heavy amount of makeup on him, and he's got like this dirty golden teeth. That kind of helps.
Oh, you mean his completely normal British teeth?
Shush. Right. But like, you know what I mean. So there was just parts. There were parts where he was very believably intense, and I get what you mean though about him being underused. And for me personally, I think it's because the camera would not linger on him. And one of the most important things you need to do to creep an audience out is create some kind of suspension and atmosphere. You don't get that very often with this character because the direction is so fast and just wants to show you how intense things are. You don't have to. When you do that, you skip over the feeling you're supposed to generate.
They did a lot of stuff. They did everything they could to make you not want to see Tim Curry.
And it worked
and push you away from him and smother his acting stuff.
Don't get me wrong. At first, it works and it builds him up. When the first couple of shots in the first episode are of him in the shadows, of him being cut away from in the editing wise, you see a glance of him and it's like, oh, he's kind of creepy, and then it stops. That worked at first, but when you keep doing it, it gets aggravating. Reveal him already. And when they finally do reveal him, it's not even a big deal anymore, because they reveal him in a really weird place where he sniffs Ellie's hair and says, oh, she's a special girl. That's the part you want to linger the camera on. Yes, it's creepy, but it's not a great reveal for him.
I like how the first shot of him shows him littering, so that's how you know he's an evil boy.
Yeah, I thought Billy Flynn was a very interesting criminal, though. As cliche as he was, I thought there was something there. But to be fair, I think it's because Tim Curry sold it.
Yeah, all the interest for me came from his final monologue that he delivered.
Yeah.
Because you could see something very interesting working underneath all the words.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like if you had just read the synopsis of the character, then you would think, oh, this is just a normal crime show evil guy.
A very generic,
a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's a very generic serial killer with a very cliche backstory.
Yeah.
But it's Tim Curry who he's like he read that and thought, well, no, I'm going to go deeper with it. I'm going to take it a bit further. And so when you get those more intimate moments, it's very intense. Is there anything else you want to say about this episode?
Yeah, there are a couple things. First of all, I was slogging through the first episode, and I was thinking, how did they come up with this? Because this is kind of stupid. And then one of the characters says the line, he's taking away their power literally and figuratively. And I'm like, okay, that's how they came up with both these episodes, is they wrote that line, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. Now we got to make something. Now we got to make 2 episodes around it.
Yeah.
And that was how the episodes were born.
Yeah.
And there were a couple things that I thought could have been better. Like, he carries around this roll of duct tape and he duct tapes people's hands together. And I feel like he should have carried around something better than duct tape.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because you can break duct tape. I mean, come on. Oh no, I have one little strip of duct tape around my hands. Guess I'll just die now.
It's one of the least intimidating things to put around your wrist, really, to be honest. When he's standing in front of that cityscape and it's like, I've got duct tape on my wrist. Ooh!
Sort of a new bangle kind of
thing.
Yeah,
it was a bit silly. I mean, like.
And then another thing is they're having these rolling blackouts in LA, and Tim Curry hunts in the darkness. But I was really confused as to why none of the victims had, I don't know, flashlights on them or anything. They're always in the darkness and nobody has any flashlights. Like, there's a mother who's going into her house and she's carrying her sleeping son, and she just walks into the complete darkness of this hallway after her door has been mysteriously opened. And I'm like, why don't you just have a flashlight as you're going in? I mean, that seems like a normal thing to do anyway. Why? And the people who do have lights are the first couple that we see, and they don't have flashlights. They have little tea candles. And I counted like 5 candles that are right around the head of their bed. I'm like, you guys are going to sleep with 5 candles lit around the head of your bed? That's fire hazard. You can't do that. And they have other things, like when you don't have your power out, you have like those camping lanterns, flashlights.
It feels like...
If you have a cell phone, you have a flashlight.
Yeah. It feels like they were focusing more on how can we make this look more cosmetically pleasing? How can we make this look interesting? Let's keep all the lights off. That's the whole gimmick of the serial killers. So let's work with, oh, it's dark. But they're not thinking, okay, what is this character intellectually thinking? What is their thought process while they're doing this? You can't just think, okay, switch off the lights, it looks cool. It goes back to Psych's problem with the bloody diamond. You can't just do something because it looks pretty or because it looks cool.
Yeah, and at the end of the first episode, they go back to Spicer's house to confront Tim Curry, and the house looks exactly the same as it did in his flashback. So you're telling me that house looks exactly the same as it did 26 years ago. I think there would be something different.
Yes.
Maybe a new gate, maybe a different color on the walls, something. But inside and out, that house looked exactly the same as it did in his flashback.
We've got to save that money. Let's reuse those sets. Got to spend all that money on that fantastic wig.
Oh my god, the wig just... I was so disappointed when I saw that wig. Oh man, that is...
Okay.
I have no words. It's a bad wig.
Right. Okay, so final thoughts?
Psych, good. Criminal Minds, okay. Except for the Tim Curry monologue. That's
amazing.
A+.
Yeah, amazing. Stunning. It's frustrating because it makes me think, you know what, after finish this, I could say this is the best performance that Tim Curry has ever done. But you can't appreciate that until you've gone through 2 episodes of the show, each of which are 45 minutes long. So it's like watching an hour-and-a-half movie and not being able to see the actor deliver his best performance until, like, about 80 minutes in.
Yeah, read the plot synopsis and then just look up the monologue on YouTube.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. It really is an amazing scene. And again, he cries. I'm just not used to Tim Curry crying. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Church of Tim Curry. I've been Jamboree.